Yeah. So here we are, Queen's Voice Lab. Hi,
Hey, what's
Paul.
up, man? Hey, what's going on, Josh?
Not a whole lot. It's here we are bathrobed up.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you. I know, we've been kind of peripherally knowing each other. Well, first of all, I just want to say, I just want to put out there that Josh, you are one of my favorite people that I don't know, that I don't like, that who's not in my sphere really. You know what I mean?
Dude, I
Like,
was so excited when we got paired up because it's like I've known Paul and like I heard stories about you before I met you. Stories
yes.
that were not entirely endearing, that were like that were not like, oh, I gotta meet this guy. Like it was like, man, he's a little bit, he's like, he's kind of brash and a little cocky, and he's very suave with the ladies, and he's kind of a player, like all this stuff. And this was before, because we the first gig we did was the Bohème with Loft Opera, right?
Loft Opera
Yeah.
2012, I think.
So this was a couple summers earlier when I was doing a Bard Summerscape, and you
Uh-huh.
came up for like a weekend or something, and like the cast was all like, Paul On's gonna be here, and I was like, who the fuck is Paul On? Like you don't know Paul? I'm like, I don't work. Like, how am I gonna know anybody? It was very funny though. And then I got to
Us.
meet you, and I was like,
Yeah.
hilarious. Okay,
Yeah,
he's
yeah. Listen,
full
you
of
know,
male toxicity. Like,
and now I drink Costco brand hard
White Claw,
seltzer.
yeah,
Yeah, White Claw,
generic White Claw.
except like it's 35 cents a can.
Costco. I mean, Costco's legit. So no,
Listen,
no hate on me from Costco.
listen. So yeah, man. So we've been on each other's radar, and I think we both started and continue to work with I don't really know how to I don't know what the right terms are these days, but we talk a lot, especially at QVL, about what is opera today, what is this art form, where is it going, where was it, what's toxic about it, what's great about it, and where and as artists, and especially now that we're a little bit older, as some as burgeoning elder statesmen of this
I mean,
art form, how
yeah,
do we how do we lead this art form to go and help it to be better for the next generation? um, and I think you and I are, it's not a unique situation, but in a particular situation where we straddle both sides of this world, right? Both grand opera in the traditional sense,
absolutely.
and a lot of contemporary early music type of thing that we both do. That's a little bit more niche, or I hate this word, but avant-garde maybe. So I
Prototype.
mean,
You know.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Where are you in terms of that, and how do you see yourself navigating it?
I mean, I got my start kind of in more contemporary, modern opera. I have a background in musical theater. I went to college for musical theater for a year and changed out because I very quickly realized that it was not for me. And I was from a very, very small town. And like my freshman year, the other people in the musical theater department were like, hey, man, we're going to go drop a bunch of acid and see what dreams may come. And I was like, I'm going to my work study job and then a Bible study. Bye. So it was like I was like scared straight a little bit by all
Mhm.
of the freewheeling musical theater people, but I think because of that background, I have a love for opera in English, and singing in English in general. Like there, a lot of singers really hate it, and I enjoy it. I don't like singing, bad Puccini translations in English. I don't like singing most opera translated into English, but like opera written in English, I I love, and I have a really intimate relationship with text. And because it's my first language, my best language, I think that immediacy really sparked And honestly, modern opera tends to be like, if you've got either a freak voice or freak musicianship, but you haven't made it, like you can work in contemporary opera. Like, and you're probably not getting paid really great fees. And like, I've always just kind of been like, I'm taking every job that comes my way because I'm an artist, I'm a singer, I'm for hire. And I don't necessarily think it's the best way to cultivate a brand, or these things that kind of, as artists now, we're being asked to do, that are tertiary from the art. I don't think like basically being a slut for hire, like I'll sing anything for money, like it it kind of cheapens your bargaining power. But I I feel like I can do just about everything. Thankfully, I want to say thankfully, because I was not hired to do kind of traditional opera for so long, but like in my mid late 30s, I started doing Puccini and Verdi and started working a little bit more. But up until then, I mean, I was not working. Like I haven't been paid to sing Mozart in a long time. Like Mozart, never sung a Donizetti, Bellini,
Hmm. That's really
any of that
interesting to
stuff.
hear because, when I heard your voice for the first time when we first worked together in 2012 and you were singing Marcello in Bohème, it seemed like, wow, so this guy has been singing in Italian, in bel canto music. Well, I mean, not bel canto music, but grand opera. And this is his bread and butter. That's what I thought. So it's really interesting to hear you say that that your background is actually not in that. But that's really interesting.
We all study it and you work on it in school, but like even in college, I was not like, I did one Mozart in my 8 years of collegiate education, which we should probably run down. I went undergrad at Shenandoah University, and
Check.
then a master's and an artist diploma at University of Cincinnati CCM. Um, but like in those 8 years, I sang Leporello, and that was my experience with Mozart in my
Mhm.
collegiate. Since then, I've covered Guglielmo, and I sang an English outreach Don Alfonso on 72 hours notice, and learned the opera on like on the car ride down to Atlanta from Pennsylvania.
Dude, that's a lot of badly written English recit.
Yo, I mean, it was so I totally broke on stage. There was this one bad line where it's like, and now if you'll allow, I'd like to tell you an adage, like this like old terrible, not barely English, and like my castmates were all just begging and praying that I would say something remotely close to. There were times when the pianist was just like trying to play recit chords like where I
Yeah.
went and shit, like it.
1616, do something, do
Oh.
something. Yeah, yeah,
And now, my dear friends, if you'll allow me, I have a story that I would like to tell you about an added, like, just, and we're all
It's like
just trying to get
Stravinsky
through.
wrote it,
Oh,
but like
man.
not ironically.
I think that was actually while I was in grad school. So,
Yeah. But what's interesting to me is that, one of your first roles being Leporello is I feel like Leporello in particular, right? And it's one of my favorite roles too. And for somebody with a with a foundational background in straight theater, musical theater, and you're playing off of not so much the musical grand line, but beats, right? American dramatic beats, right? I mean, Leporello, that's written
it
into
was
the
great.
that's yeah. I mean, that's the most natural bridge that I could think of to go into Italian opera from having that background as a legit actor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was a little disappointed. I wanted to sing Giovanni for sure. But I did get to work with Corey Kreider was my Giovanni, so it was a good buddy cop movie, I think. But it was I mean, yeah, that was my first because in my undergrad, all of the we did all the operas in English, English
Mhm.
translation, and that was the first full role in another language that I ever sang. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, nuts, man.
Is that true? Shit. Yeah. How about you? What is your background? I'm really interested in your probably post collegiate military service
Oh
and
shit, yeah,
how
man. Um,
that came about. Because I looked to join the army band right
mhm,
out of high school. I was
mhm.
like, I had the recruiter come over and everything. I was a saxophone player and was like this is money for college, like just all the benefits stacking up. But they were like, one of the last questions, they were like, so do you have any health problems? And I was like, well, I have asthma. And they're like, how bad? Can you run
Yeah.
10 miles? And I was like, bitch, I can't like walk 10 miles. Like, I can't run 10. I throw up after a mile, like 10 miles.
Yeah, man. If you've seen
They
some
were
of the
like,
people
nope.
that
Sorry.
were in basic training and then also subsequently in
Yeah.
my army unit, you would have been fine. I have a feeling
I
you would
should
have
have,
been totally fine.
I, I, I should have said nothing, but also I don't entirely regret not signing up.
Yeah.
Not,
Well, and so yeah, I mean that story is it's a complicated one, but long story short, I studied science in college, or attempted to. I failed that 3 times. I was I didn't go there on my own accord. My dad kind of shoved me into pharmacy school, and I was not having a good time except in collegiate choir,
hmm,
and yeah, I think it was my junior year. We hosted this men's glee club conference, and the army band men's choir came into town and said, "Hey, actually, we have a low bass opening. So if there are any graduating seniors who are looking to, have a steady job in music, why don't you come see us?" And so I did, and about a year later, found myself in boot camp, and then 9/11 happened.
yeah, man.
Yeah. So that was wild, man. It was, so I
Were you in
basically,
boot camp during 9/11, like when that
yeah, I was in
happened?
Fort Benning, the headquarters of the Western World's infantry. So, like, you think the
Yeah,
Pentagon, the head of the animal, was chopped off. The financial district was chopped off. And then what did we all think? Well, naturally, they're going to want to cut off the body of the military, being the
sure.
infantry. And thank God that didn't happen. And I ended up, well, and I thought for a while, for months even, that I was going to be rerouted into like actual army.
Yeah,
you know, and that didn't end up happening. I didn't end up going overseas, and eventually ended up back in Washington D.C. to be in one of the musical arms of the military. But I think you and I have a similarity in that we grew up a certain way. We probably grew up both, being taught that as Americans, or as aspiring Americans like myself, the way to go into society, or to way to be respected, is kind of shut up, respect authority, respect tradition, and jobs like fire department, police department, especially military. These are going to be the ticket to being an upstanding citizen of the United States.
yeah,
And 20 years later, at least, I don't know, at least thematically in my life, that's so far from the truth that I live now. And being an artist, living the lifestyle I live as an artist, and I kind of following that road, kind of helped me to see, like, dude, that's not it. That's not it. There are, there are, if if the United States is, a good country, if it is the model, and I grew up in the church where we kept talking about a city on a hill, right?
Yeah.
And, and our community is a city on a hill, society at large, our country is a city on a hill. And, more and more, as I open my eyes, as I see the things outside of my own skin, more and more I just, if that is to be true, or if that is true, if that adage is true in the form of a mission or in the form of a dream, it's not there, it was never there, and if it's ever going to get there, it's going to take a lot of work, from the ground up. And so, yeah, it's, this this pandemic, the social justice, coming under a magnifying lens, and coming together with my lens as an artist. It's been, the pandemic is a shitty time for everybody, but
Yeah.
the blessing therein for me though is that, I'm having the time to be able to, see where those two lenses of my life and of where, of the society, of the community that I want to live in, and more importantly for my kids to grow up in,
Sure.
that has to really, come into focus, like with those two lenses being in focus with each other. And I don't know, with you and I know what the hustle of the opera world is like, what the acting life is like, and a lot of that is about me, me.
Yeah.
How can I get my manager to talk to this company and say, hey, do this for me, and not that an artist, striving to, get, to climb, or like to get his own due, that's not a bad thing, but but we're so often just considering our own lens, and we've been forced to just kind of push that lens aside for now.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been a little bit eye opening. And
I mean, I have, been encouraged, especially right in the immediate um, wake of the murder of George Floyd, just how the response to the Black Lives Matter group movement was, it was very positive, and a lot of people that had been kind of happy to let the conversation take place away from them and not involving themselves really educated them. And I think that is so much of the problem is people they have their own little echo chamber. There are large parts of this country where there is not diversity of, ethnic diversity, religious diversity, diversity of thought. And I hope that one of the things I enjoy about Queen's Voice Lab is that we all kind of individually tick different boxes. Like I'm the resident straight white cis baritone guy, although a lot of those things are it's a distribution, it's a spectrum, so whatever.
right.
I've got long hair. I gender
and good
bend.
old boys need to be somewhere on that spectrum, because spectrum is not one line, but it's a circle.
It's a bimodal distribution, and we're all spread across it. But so but I think there is, for the most part, I think we all kind of have agreement on a lot of where we would like to see the country go.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we all come from such interesting and unique backgrounds, but we all eventually kind of found ourselves in Queens ish for a time.
Yeah.
And then and because of music and opera, like it's like all these tributaries have brought us into this one place. And I think by exploring our experiences, hopefully we'll be able to have a better understanding of kind of how to talk to people that we might not think that we have a whole lot of in common with.
Right.
which I kind of have I can get confrontational sometimes pretty quickly. I get passionate and yeah. So I guess if I would have to say if there was one thing I was hoping to get out of Queen's Voice Lab, it would be that we would all gain um, kind of an ability and a willingness to talk to people that are outside of our own group, outside of our comfort zone.
Hmm.
And, I do think even in our meetings, it's a little bit of an echo chamber ideologically. Uh, I, I think there is a lot of good to be had by the fact that we are, reaching out and um, seeking to build bridges, like political
Yeah.
cliche.
Well, and you talked about how the I think America as a country, I think the United States as a country, we do have diversity, we do have different religions, we have different modes of thought and everything like that. But I think your point is that where we situate ourselves,
Yeah,
even as liberals, even as
totally.
progressive, open-minded people, we are always in comfortable positions where we reach out to likeness, right?
Yeah.
We are so ego driven, we are so narcissistic, in some ways that, hey,
And
listen,
fear based, like fear driven,
mhm,
that if we show to our local community that we are on the outside, that we're afraid to be othered in a way that could, you know, cause abandonment in some way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, when Kelvin first approached me about doing Queen's Voice Lab, I think without getting into nitty gritty details about what we had talked about in the beginning, what it turned out to be was something completely different.
Totally.
Um, and yes, we are made up of individuals who look and are so different from one another. And I guess we might have uh, we might have a progressive bend as a group, whatever that means. And But yeah, I do think that as individuals, we probably differ in even what opera is, right? I think one of the
Totally.
one of the first questions that Kelvin and Kathy asked of us was, "What does opera mean to you now, here and now?" Toward the end of 2020, with everything that's been going on, and that answer in and of itself has it's a very tricky one. I mean, to me, opera is never going to exist without without the singer and without the athletic singer, right? Without
Hmm.
there, because operatic singing is, by my definition at least, something that is so different from musical theater, acoustic folk, even church music. And I know
Totally.
church music can be done operatically, but to me, as much as I believe in the diversity of the genre, and that we can't go forward without without that diversity. To me, it has a foundation in that uh, in my unamplified voice, rising above and within the context of a chamber or a symphonic orchestra in a small to large house, but the synthesis of all of those things produces opera.
Yeah.
And I know that some people might consider that maybe even an outdated or myopic thing, but to me, if we're going to consider the contemporary movement of opera, that it can't be, that it has to, that if you want to inject the word operatic musical theater or just anything opera based, it has to have that athletic singing element to it. And there's just, and then everything else that comes with, um, you know, contemporary opera, you know, is is supports and is lives with, is a marriage of that thing, but it can't exist without the singer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And to me, you know, I guess I kind of define opera, well, obviously the singers are the most important part. First of all, like let's be real. No. To me, I just have such problems with that question because there is no, like there's no definition. You can look it up in Webster's and it's going to probably talk mostly about a 17th, 18th, 19th century art form, etc. But like I I'm happy to, like we kind of touched on earlier. I'm for hire. If I can sing it, I will sing it for you. If you want to call it opera, I will call it opera. If it, I have sung some opera that sounds like, I mean, children's simple music. I did this one gig, my dude, accompanied by a flute player who was playing the piano. And at the end of every page turn, she had to literally stop while she found the notes. So like it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Like every time she had to change the chord. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but to her, it was opera. So far be it from me to tell her that, you know, it's not going to make my resume and I'll never work with her again because she did not pay me the full amount because
Oh
she's
no.
shady as hell. But yeah, I mean, there's so, I guess the art form, because it has existed and we haven't really kind of, we've changed what it sounds like and the requirements for it, but haven't changed the name of it. But it's been around for 400 years. Like what it is to now, what it is now is kind of whatever you want it to be. Like
Yeah.
I do think that kind of the vocal acrobatics, like typically unamplified. I guess when I define it, I use a lot of qualifiers like typically,
Mm-hmm.
stereotypically, usually. There's usually some sort of orchestra. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's it's typical that it is not in the singer's native language. Not always, you know. Um,
Through
almost,
some.
yeah, unamplified to me
Mm-hmm.
has mostly like that was something that for me not until probably I got to New York 10 years ish ago and started working in the contemporary opera scene there, that even that was like, up until that point I was like, man, if you're using mics, it's not real opera. And then I start doing stuff with like Beth Morrison projects where there's like guitars and dubstep mixes and shit in the background. It's like, oh no, like give me a fucking mic, bro. I'm not trying
Yeah,
to sing
yeah,
over the shit. Like,
yeah. Right, right.
you know,
You know,
so stuff like that.
yeah, it's interesting to me. So some of what I've been doing during the pandemic time is working via Zoom, um, and working with people like in our own QVL committee, Kamala Shankram, who's wonderful, wonderful
Love
composer.
her.
Yeah, and wonderful operatic singer in her own right, and so she knows how to write for the medium, right?
Yeah.
But
I just did one of her pieces with Experiments in Opera. Plug. There's a
oh
podcast.
yeah, 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 yeah. And she, and she combined with a couple of other creatives, um, you know, came up with the world's first Zoom opera, and they've been
Yeah.
doing an episodic installments of this new project that I've been a part of. And so, in a way, I've had to, and they're calling it Zoom opera, right? So, and so built into that is, of course, you know, here's my Zoom opera mic that I use. Here's a, the Zoom opera camera that I look into. There's
Sure.
a Zoom opera green screen that's behind me and doing all sorts of crazy, wonderful, crazy cinematic things. And all of that to what? To you know, to tell a story. Like what is real, you know, operatic singing, you know, you know, we can go into what that is and what that's not, but you know, it tells a story. And all of this, you know, in the time of a pandemic, you know, we're using Zoom and computers and collaborations in this way, you know, and listing, you know, the text, the people creating the images like behind us. You know, these are the creatives on the same like byline as director, creator, composer,
Sure.
librettist, right? And that's important. That's a very important part of what opera is in 2020. But I do think, you know, especially somebody like Kamala Shamprum's works, you know, she doesn't, you know, just because there is a mic and there is a, you know, there's a camera right in front of you, you know, she doesn't downplay, you know, the vocal what it means to be an opera singer. Like you're still supposed to sing it operatically,
Right.
and with all the technical ability and acrobatics therein. And so, you know, there are, you know, we have seen successful elements of opera in 2020 and going forward that is going to use, you know, operatic singing with, you know, with a combination of all of these wonderful other things. And if you think about it, you know, if you think about the shift from, say, Monteverdi to, you know, to Puccini, you know, not that that's one shift, but there, you know, that kind of shift, as monumental it is, it's almost kind of crazy to think about those two composers or those two kind of, you know, theater pieces in one umbrella that it is opera, right?
Yeah.
But you know, is it so crazy that from Puccini to, you know, to Kamala Shankram is, you know, is that more of a leap than from Handel to Puccini? Maybe not.
I mean, it is wild to think that like Puccini, like that was 100 years ago. Like that's not that's not that like that long ago.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like
Have you ever worked with, or do you know the the conductor who just recently passed away, Anton Coppola? You know
mm-mm.
that name?
Yeah, I know
He
the
died.
name.
He died recently, almost at the age of 100, and he was a boy chorister at the Met when the Met first did Bohème in 19, you know, whatever year that was. And freaking Puccini was, you know, he might have been there in the
Yeah,
house. And then, you know, and then I've done subsequent Puccini operas with him. Can you imagine? And, you
that's
know,
fucking
I'm not a
crazy.
young cat anymore. You know, I'm in my 40s, but like to think that
Represent.
in my young artist age, that I worked with the bridge of, you know, the bridge from Puccini to me.
Yeah.
When I think
You've
of Puccini, like even though it was only 100 years ago, those are, you know, those are the godfathers, man. It's like, you know, Monteverdi, Handel, like Verdi, Puccini, Mozart, like they're to me they're just all old white masters, you know.
they're on pedestals that are so long it's museums of like oldness, but
Right.
really like you met a dude who probably sang for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So it
So
is
what?
it is interesting to see like to think about how the last 100 years have changed, and then when you look at some of the changes that have gone on, like Monteverdi to Mozart, how how many years apart was that? Like these kind of big classic, like big sections of time that we view as like almost like ages of music that are equivalent to like the ages of the earth, like the Paleozoic period. Like the Mozart classical period was eon, like that shit was
Yeah.
like 40 years. And they didn't have TikTok like pressing this
Right, right.
shit along. Like,
Yeah, it was literally two people's lifetimes, you know,
yeah,
different. Yeah. Yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's really interesting. I'm really interested to see. I mean, I'm super interested to see what the business is like just in 5 years from now because of the pandemic. It,
Yeah.
the the kind of the biggest thing, we've talked about so many kind of fun foundational level things like the white supremacy in opera and the inequity, not only based on people's identities that are visible, but the economic inequity of young artists and kind of how that, like, all that fees being pushed down to the bottom to prop up the top is kind of unsustainable. um just with with all those things in the air, to me the big pressing question is just, is it going to be back in the next year or two?
Hmm.
Like, when are the audiences of generally older immunocompromised people going to be willing to get into a place, and can the business hold on? Like, the Met just locked out IATSE. They're potentially going to lock out the musicians union. I think they have to renegotiate that this year. um,
Right.
and I wasn't singing there before, so probably it's not like they're taking gigs off my calendar. But as those big institutions go, so do many of the regional houses. And
Hmm.
thankfully a lot of those companies have been a little more um, just creative in continuing their seasons and adjusting their seasons on the fly. but
Yeah. You know, and
but
I
it's
and
it's
this.
hard for me. I guess to sum it up, it's hard for me
Yeah.
to really focus on these foundational changes when the question of what is the industry even going to survive. And that's also just probably my privilege, being because I haven't seen the negative effects of those things, especially as a straight white guy. Like, I walk into a room and people just view me as an opera singer, whereas when a minority walks into the room, all there are a lot of different identities, and all of a sudden lots of people have fucking issues with it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the two of us being of a similar age, I think we probably both went through our young artist times during a very similar financial hit of
totally.
2008 and 2009, right? But
Yeah,
this feels a little bit different. What I think, and I'm just going to overly generalize, but you're talking about the Met trickling down, and other regional companies being, still the same model of older, affluent, probably white uh, donors being able to support these regional opera companies, and the same type of people who might support a Tulsa opera company, the same type of people, you've just put more zeros in their pocket and transplant them to New York City. Those are the people like Ann Ziff, people that are supporting the Metropolitan Opera, right? So they
yeah.
follow even though there are vast differences of zeros at the end of their budget ledger line, but they're basically the same company. You know what I
A,
mean?
a
They
billionaire in New York is kind of equivalent to a multimillionaire in Tulsa.
right,
Like,
right, right. You're dealing with you're dealing with, instead of financial bros that are 94 years old, you're dealing with like oil tycoons that have
yeah,
one less zeros at the end of their name. But my point is that the 2008 2009 hit, which hit so profoundly for me because I was a young artist in Orlando at the Orlando Opera. At the end of my first year there, the company folded along with 11 other, ABC houses that were
yeah,
run very similar to each other. And that, when a dozen opera companies of that kind of stature all disappear at once, that's going to change the vein. That's going to that's going to like profoundly change what opera is, right? But this feels a little bit different to me, because I do feel like there are companies and people thinking about opera in a different way, like QVL, like Prototype, you know, like the industry out in LA,
yeah.
that are kind of, well, let's, who are we making this art form for? Let's kind of divest from that kind of thing and do, and just kind of do our own thing and artist driven or like, community driven in a different way that seems to me than, than the way that things were going before. Not to say that regional opera companies now, that they're obscure, obsolete, or anything like that, because, God forbid if they stop, all of a sudden the rest, aside from the 11 that dropped in 2009, we need
Yeah.
them to stay around, so that our families can survive.
I mean, I'm really just I'm hoping that that other shoe doesn't fall. That it would be nice if there was some sort of aid package, arts package, but it's a not-for-profit business model. So like it seems like a lot of the stimulus is that's being proposed is to prop up the Wall Street driven economic model. So I'm
Hmm.
whether or not that affects the donor base at large enough to continue charitable giving. um I don't know. It's all just it's wild.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, and in the end, I guess we suck at the teat of money, right? We all need
sure.
to get along. We all need to survive somehow. But I do wish that that the I don't know, the marionette, the person that's pulling at the purse strings, therefore pulling at the puppets, the entire puppet show's strings, weren't the top donor, weren't the board of directors.
Oh yeah. Well, you get, because I mean they tend to be older and they tend to have, a long history of enjoying the opera, whether or not it is like a supremely educated, well-honed artistic ear can be argued, I think, a lot of places. But like they have a lot of influence about the direction that the art form goes,
Mhm.
just based on the fact that they can cut a check for 20 grand. I mean,
Right. Or 20
it's,
million. Yeah.
I mean,
It's and thank goodness for people like that,
for
who
sure.
do give of their, of their finances, and I'm definitely thankful of that. But just,
Some of the best people I know are very rich and I love them. And, I, people work hard, they amass wealth. I get it. The American dream, I get it. I just think they should pay a little bit more in taxes. I don't,
right.
I,
Look, they work hard, but so do the people that are packing your shit,
yo,
that's coming through Amazon, through the magical escalator of Amazon. Like the people that are working that, those guys are working the American dream too. Like they're working hard.
you mean all the essential workers that are about to get fucked when they pass this stimulus and they're not allowed to sue their companies for giving them COVID and killing them, but at
Right.
least they got $1,200.
Right.
Yo,
Yeah, we could probably do a 4 hour long podcast, just, but that would take way more alcohol
bitching
and
about
drugs.
politics.
Oh my
When
God.
were you always
Um,
leftward leaning, still proceeding?
ish. I was what I might consider the neoliberal, that kind of
Sure.
hateful term. I actually started, whenever I came into these into these boogie words, I might have considered myself a libertarian, actually, way back in the
Dude,
early
I was total
2000s.
I was totally a libertarian.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
I, I was a right winger that went into libertarianism, that
yeah.
went into like leftist progressivism.
Listen, bless the libertarians, man. It seems like a practical stepping stone into the truth.
I think there are a lot. I still consider myself a libertarian, just not like of the party libertarian. I'm just a leftist libertarian.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm a fan of liberty. Like I think the the I think the progressives get a bad name in the idea that I think a lot of people are under the impression that we want to like set up recorders, and if somebody accidentally misgenders someone or says like tells an inappropriate racial joke that we want to like put their face on a billboard in Times Square and make sure everybody hates on them. And it's like that's those those things matter, but those are small potatoes when cops are killing people.
Right.
Like we realize that we're never going to live in a place where you can control for bigotry. But
Right.
if you can eliminate the systemic shit, like, and bring everybody up a bit, like, come on now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, I mean, and this is not, this is maybe not the time to expound upon this, for 2 hours, but, just very basically, when we're talking, when we're when we circle up and we're talking to each other, and we are, of a similar mindset, and that's what, and we are somehow like convincing each other that, we need to get rid of Trump. And in order to do so, we all need to be on the same page to elect Joe Biden. And in order to be supportive of Joe Biden, you can't put his feet to the fire. Not quite yet, at least. Not quite yet. You know what I mean? And then when it's time to put to put our leaders' feet to the fire, the people that are on our side, then that's where we get the pushback from what I call, neoliberals.
The neoliberal
Um,
establishment.
well, yeah, I mean, and
But
it's
it's true. Like, and we get it that, like, obviously Joe Biden is better than Trump. Like,
right,
obviously, but that motherfucker is not perfect. Like,
right.
he he, he
Yeah, I mean, he and the Clintons of the world, they put more, black bodies behind bars than possibly any other group of white supremacists. they were
yeah.
they were more successful as white supremacists than the white supremacists.
Well, isn't that some fucked up shit? I think we hit the two of them.
Yeah. Did we explicitly say why we joined QVL?
No. I joined, honestly, I really did join because Kelvin asked me, because I love Kelvin. If Kelvin asks me to do basically anything, if I'm available, it's an easy yes right off the bat. And right at the start of the pandemic, and still now, I don't have a telecommuting job, and I'm not like zooming in regularly for a church job. So it's kind of,
Mhm.
this is getting to meet with this group of artists is kind of the closest thing I have to the kind of fraternal bond of musicians that we get. Like I was telling Calvin about it in our little chat, how this group feels like a cast to me. Like it's the same, you get this when you're on a gig and you find like-minded people and you go out to a bar and you end up on the balcony of your hotel room chatting till 4 in the morning, exactly, smoking and drinking and just like getting to know these people, because we all live such rad fucking weird lives,
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
hearing the stories and shit, and politics comes up, and all of the issues, like the issues of today, come up because I bring them up, because I don't give a fuck if I offend people. um so like it to me, it's like the closest thing I'm getting to like being around my people,
Hmm.
but not every day. It's like for
Right.
a couple hours every 2 weeks. So I was right off the bat, I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize how much I needed it until I think we had met a couple times, and I was like, oh, I know that other people are tired of Zoom calls, and I know that other people are singing and tired of singing on their phones, but anytime anyone wants to just do anything, I would love to see people.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I had a similar response. But just yeah, pandemic fatigue, I think, hits everybody in different ways,
Totally.
and I've certainly been, as eh, and I think we all have sides to our artistic life that's different from our interior lives, behind closed doors of our own front door of our own home. And when I go out on 3 to 4 week opera gigs, even though that, almost a month or 3 weeks or whatever it is, it's a substantial amount of time, but not so long that I can still wear a skin mask of an exterior Paul, who
Sure.
is might be more gregarious, might be more sharing, might have that kind of, more of that energy than I usually do. But the interesting thing about what Kelvin asked us to do, and what continues to happen every 2 weeks, is that we don't go outside of our front doors to come into these meetings. For me,
Right.
there is a juggling of this skin mask, of this, well, okay, even though it's a Zoom meeting, it's a panel of people that I really enjoy, most of whom have been friends for a while, and I feel completely comfortable with them. But it's more comfortable to be comfortable with y'all when I have my gig mask on, when I have my
Mm.
I'm traveling outside the house. I'm opening the door of my home and coming into this communal thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's and combined with pandemic fatigue that hits you at home, because pandemic fatigue can go away for hours at a time, for minutes at a time. Certainly, when I take a nice walk, when
Yep.
I spend time with my boys out in the playground or something like that. But it's this kind of like oppressive thing that continues to be there, and that's the really difficult thing about this time. And so I told Kelvin, and Kelvin and Kathy, like, straight up from the beginning, I said, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if this would be enjoyable for me, because I am aware of myself as that person when I am home, and it's difficult for me. But in the same way that therapy is great for me and is not something that I enjoy doing. It's not something that I might look forward to upon waking up, saying, "Oh,
Right.
I have an appointment today at 1 o'clock. I can't wait to talk to the doctor, blah blah blah, and tell them about what's going on, blah, 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 in here." Um, but I do, and I am better for it. In the
Totally.
same way, we enter these Zoom meetings, and even though it's once every 2 weeks, it's a regular thing enough that it is both comforting and also burdensome, but the
Totally.
burdensome aspect of it, once I enter the weighted doors, right, and I close the door behind me, and once I see the Zoom squares, and even though I hate Zoom, and in the beginning I might find that a little retching to, oh, okay, another fucking Zoom meeting, but we settle into our thing, and it is home. It
Hmm.
is an aspect of home that is also a part of me. um, so to
I
be
was
able to
feeling,
have that,
go ahead.
yeah,
No, go ahead.
yeah, so to be able to have that, when do we start this thing, like September, regularly,
I want to say
maybe
August.
August. Okay. To have had that for nearly a quarter now, it's actually been one of the most amazing things. Even though it's only twice a week or so, it's been so uplifting. Even though I didn't think it would be.
Yeah. I I had some major I totally relate about like the to me it's like there's a sense of obligation that like when I wake up in the day it's like okay, I've got to do this today. And like I get I don't know, I feel a little like the self-doubt nagging, especially this last time because the previous meeting when the COVID talk happened and I got so animated and swore a bunch and I I I, I spent 2 weeks in the back of my head. I didn't rewatch the video because I was there, so like I've
Uh,
only really checked in on the things that I've missed. But like I spent the 2 weeks like did I piss anybody off? Like, because I'm totally aware that in my life as like a large human being, I can be intimidating. I don't view myself as intimidating.
Mm.
I am a lover, not a fighter, like, and a big cuddly teddy bear. But like, that is not always the impression that I give off based on my volume and my size. So I had a lot of like just inner monologue hatred, like you're about to walk in this room that you just like flipped over a table last week. And yeah, I was it was but then I got in the room and I was like, man, I love these people. Like I just
Mm.
it's just a good group, and I'm super thankful that you know, who knows what it's going to end up being. I would love to do like master classes with a bunch of us on a panel,
Hmm.
like maybe virtually, just so we can like hear a performance. I want to hear what other people, because I have a very tr- even though my path has not been traditional, I feel like I read traditionally. Like I'm like a loud, very baritone, white, long hair. Like I'm growing the opera. Like I'm going for it, you know? And I think I present that pretty well. But like just having some of the other opinions of people in the room that come from like Hai Ting comes from a completely different performance background, much less background.
Right.
And God, I would love to hear what some of these fucking people have to say about just like uh, De Vieni alla finestra, or you know, like some normal generic opera aria that everybody sings. You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
uh, uh, I just think it would be. I think I look forward to hopefully this becoming something that can extend beyond Zoom and into something else, or like a, a, a music retreat with everybody. I don't know. We all
Mm.
live all across the fucking country now. How many people ended up in California? Like you, isn't Michelle in California?
Michelle, yeah, she was in California a little bit before the pandemic, but still,
Is
but
there?
you talked about how you might have had a moment 2 weeks ago that you felt foolish about or whatever, but it didn't. First of all, it didn't come across as that, and second of all, even if you were acting like an asshole, which you weren't, this group of people, including you, including me, we are so tough on ourselves, but when it comes to other people, we're so gracious, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And also, yes, in person you're a big guy, and maybe brash and just loud, but the strange and wonderful and awful thing about the Zoom is that everybody has the same fucking size of pixel of square, right?
It's
and
true.
everybody has the can self mute or be muted. Not that we practice that in our conference calls, but
But the
but
potential is there.
yes, yes. So there's something, there's something liberating and and equality setting about a Zoom meeting, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that I love that idea that we are much more critical of ourselves as opposed, you know, inwardly critical. Do you think that I find that as a singer, that is an extremely helpful quality to have because it allows you to always not buy your own, not think your farts don't stink. You know what I mean? Like I'm constantly, my eye for critical detail and ability to neg myself and like criticize my work is one of the ways that I think I've been able to continually track and get better.
Yeah.
And it's something, that level of scrutiny is not necessarily, I don't apply it to colleagues that I work with. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the only one that needs to be perfect is me, and everybody else, as long as they're good to work with and know their music
Right.
and you know, not making my job extraordinarily hard. I just am thrilled to be working with them and, you know, along for the ride.
Well, you're two
Is
steps
that kind
ahead.
of how you are?
Yeah, well, yes, I actually, um, it's my goal to get there. Actually, the synthesis of self-criticism for me is not, it forms while I'm singing. And,
Mm,
and every good voice teacher will say, don't listen to yourself while you're singing. You can't produce and judge at the exact same vertical moment that you're doing those two
totally.
things. And I find and to me, building technique is not really putting on something. It's a whittling down of something, right? It's a
Mm.
whittling down of my ego. It's a whittling down of,
You're
of
listening to
that
yourself.
listening to
Yeah.
myself, judging myself while it's happening. And so I do wish, though, that I can be that kind of forming, self-critical, forming self, in the same way that you just described so aptly. I wish I could do that, but as soon as I put my pencil down onto the music stand, then
Mm-hmm.
that's the time that I can do that. Like, what did I just fucking do? But I often find myself like, while I'm singing, singing a color to a line, like, oh my God, am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it? Am I gonna make it? No, you're not gonna make it, fool, because you can't be thinking
Because you
about
keep
that
thinking
while
about
you're,
making it.
yeah, while you're singing like 16th triplet notes.
There is something like the immediacy of the art form that gets me out of my own head. Like the need to be pretty fucking present about what
Mhm.
you're doing. I love that. And that kind of just clicks over in my head. But a lot of that, uh, I've always really thrived in performance situations. Auditions were really, really,
Mm.
really tough for me for a long time until I started recording them. I just record them from my phone. A lot of times it'll just be in my pocket, but I'll go back and listen to it because I was not booking stuff for a long time and like just being like, man, I suck. Like I'm fucking terrible. Like that imposter syndrome was rolling really hard with me.
Yeah.
And then I started listening back to it because I was like, I got to get better. And I didn't necessarily trust my agent's ears at the time. And thankfully I've changed. And, uh, and so it was like, I don't know. I think being able to know that I could go back and listen
Mhm.
and be as critical as I want freed me up to not feel that I needed to use that moment for self improvement. Because that idea that like you get better or you're not working now. If you don't get better, you're going to continue not working. I think a lot of us have like this I'm not good enough yet mentality, which is kind of silly because like let's be real, not all the singers that are out there working are the greatest singers. There's a
Right.
lot there's so much that goes into all of it.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I love working in theater, in a
oh,
dramatic setting, because it does help me to not have to pay attention to myself. If I'm, if I'm acting in a scene with somebody else or with a sextet of people, it's much easier than to just, you know, let them be the soft spotlight for somebody else. And
yeah,
that's, and even while you're singing, you're singing to somebody, and there's an organic thing going back and forth. And maybe not so much in traditional opera theater as say, in an August Wilson theater piece or something like that, or
sure.
Shakespeare. But even just having the presence of somebody next to you, not in a concert like I formation of a football thing, like
Right.
everybody
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in their
yeah.
ducktails, just bo 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 bo, and even though oratorios can be compelling drama, we're not interacting with one another.
Yeah,
But even the limitations of operatic drama storytelling, even with the limitations of that, there is some, focus that's able to be, away from yourself, that helps me, when I'm singing.
totally.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the lightning round real quick. All right.
All right.
Do you have a favorite movie? What's your favorite movie?
I love The Mission.
Tricky.
I love The Mission. Um,
The Mission?
yeah, Robert De Niro, Jeremy Irons. Have you
I've
ever seen
never I've never
this?
seen it.
Now, when I was a fundamentalist Christian back in those days, it was shown at my church, right? But oh my gosh, it left even though I don't practice that kind of religion anymore, it's still one of the most beautiful movies that I can,
Huh.
and I still go back to it every once in a while. Yeah, you would. I think you would. I think you would really enjoy it.
All right. I don't have a favorite movie. It's tricky. I don't rewatch movies very often. It's usually like, what's the new next thing for me to
Queen's Gambit.
consume?
Yeah.
My wife watched it. She said, eh.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's like, oh my God, it's the best show. My wife was like, it's fine. The writing's a little blue.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let me ask you. Okay, let me ask you a lightning round question. Do you enjoy profound movies better or hate watching bad movies?
Ooh. I think I would take a profound movie. I do enjoy, I used to watch a lot of the like made for TV sci-fi channel.
Uh-huh.
Back when I had cable before I cut the cord, like especially in grad school, like those afternoon stretches of like ice spiders followed by like some like bullshit Yeti movie, like just
Babylon.
yeah, like 7 hours in a row of just like made for TV bad sci-fi. I would totally get time,
Yeah.
but for the most part, I mean, I, I enjoy a good film. I
Mhm.
don't typically in I don't watch a lot of comedy, which is weird because
Yeah.
I enjoy humor. I find things funny, but I typically stay away. All right, what else do we got? Is there anything you won't eat? Do you have any weird food things?
No, I actually, I'm one of those people. I I'll try anything once. I'm mostly like that with like every facet of life. I'll try anything once.
Do you seek out new things to try, or is it one of those things like if you go to a restaurant,
Hmm.
it, are you going to be like, I've never had that, I'll try it? Or if somebody said like, you need to try this, you will try it?
Yeah. No, I'll go out because I don't want to die tomorrow knowing that I missed this great thing on the menu. Same thing with hiking or something, like I love going hiking, and most hikers have have their favorite spots. I
Mm-hmm.
even traveling across the country, I don't want to travel the same route twice, even if it's like the most wonderful, beautiful, majestic thing ever.
All right.
Yeah. Let's see. Um, Savory or sweet?
Well, if the pandemic has taught me anything, it's probably sweet. I have invested in making desserts since the pandemic, and most of it is right here now. Solid pandemic 10.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna have to say sweet. What other questions? What about, oh, how about this? Do you have a personal hero? This isn't in the lightning round, but I like it. Do you have a personal hero?
Gosh, I am so conditioned to saying Jesus. but I'm gonna stick with that answer, man. But I see Jesus in such a different light now. Like he's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know if I had to say somebody, I guess I'd say Jesus. But because you know, even if whether he's the son of God or not, he was still a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How
A
about you?
radical anti-establishment
Yeah.
hippie, essentially.
Even though that's not what most Americans worship.
A brown socialist, and
Exactly.
like that was executed by the government.
Exactly. How about you? Personal hero.
Personal hero. Um, nope. Don't have. I guess it's. I've never really had. I grew up idolizing sports heroes a lot.
Mhm.
Was a big Barry Sanders fan. big David Robinson fan. Basically, anybody who was outwardly Christian, I was like,
Yeah.
"You're my favorite player."
I love
So
David Robinson too,
yo, the
man.
best man. He's just like work hard, be humble.
Yeah. He had the
Um,
Dwight Howard shoulders before Dwight Howard. That
yo,
dude was, yeah, he was built.
and in military, right? I think
Yeah.
he served.
The Admiral.
Yeah.
He
So
went to the Naval Academy.
yeah. So I had a lot of sports heroes growing up. But really like would have to say that I would find like qualities in people that I admired, but for the most part, there's not like there are not individual humans that I've kind of looked up to in that way. My voice teachers from
Hmm.
undergrad and grad school, Bard Suverkrop in undergrad and Bill McGraw at CCM. I mean, I owe them basically my whole life since then for the things that they taught me and kind of the ways that they taught me to be. And I had a lot of growing up to do, and they really helped me over those 8 years of school. So
Hmm. Hmm.
but I'm not really in touch with either of them because I'm bad at being a human with connections to people. So
Me too, man. Me too. Yeah, my voice teacher too, Steve Smith, one of my favorite people in the world. But I haven't shot him a message or talked to him, picked up the phone to talk to him in God, nearly a decade now, probably.
yeah,
Aside from like Facebook, like happy birthday.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, sir, this has
Anything
certainly
else?
been
Anything else you want to chat? Yeah. Like
dude, this has been real, man.